My family's leaving my niece with us. They think we should be happy about it. At the door are my husband's parents and his sister, with her 2-year-old daughter. They've been asking us to look after her since they got divorced half a year ago. Instead of easing off, they're insisting we take her, even though we're not in a position to raise someone else's child. But things are about to take a surprising turn with this little girl. I'm Kelly Allen, and I'm 27. I married John, who's 29 and was running a restaurant when we got married 3 years ago. We hoped to have kids, but it didn't happen. Luckily, Jan has been really kind to us, making our lives busy but fun. I've hardly seen John's family since we got married because he's not close to them. The gap between them got bigger when he opened his restaurant. His parents worked at a big family restaurant chain, and they wanted him to join too. But John had his own dreams. I want to make dishes that everyone will love, John explained. But instead of understanding him, his sister treated him like he was attacking their family's restaurant chain. Are you saying our food isn't good enough? John must have found it frustrating that she wouldn't listen. After endless arguments, John gave up trying to convince them. I'd rather keep my distance from Mom and Dad. Okay, I'll stay out of it too, I told him, and we enjoyed our peaceful days together. But everything changed when Jan divorced and moved back in with their parents 6 months ago. One weekday during lunch rush, Jan burst into the restaurant. I'm here again. It's so quiet in here, she loudly announced, bringing her mother and her 2-year-old niece. They sat down without hesitation. You're back. Remember to keep it down, John reminded her. Always complaining. Anyway, I'll have the usual and make it quick. Jane never pays when she visits, and we were getting tired of it. I signaled to John that I'd handle it and stepped in front of Jan. There are other customers waiting, so if you're dining here, you'll need to pay like everyone else. What? You're actually charging family? How low can you get? Jan's outburst drew the attention of everyone in the restaurant. Please lower your voice. It's disturbing others, I politely requested, but she ignored me. This is all your fault. John's changed because of you. Her harsh words froze the atmosphere. My husband, stopping his cooking, emerged from the kitchen. If you're here to cause trouble, please leave. We can discuss any issues later. We'll address any concerns you have, so please stop causing a scene. But Jan continued to complain, ignoring both me and my husband. Even her mother, instead of reprimanding her, just urged her to hurry up and order. Seeing that we couldn't defuse the situation, we served them lunch. They left without paying, acting as if it was normal. But it didn't end there. Jan became even more demanding. You're looking after Riker today too. Every day, she declared, dropping off her daughter at our shop. But we're working. It's your job as a mom to take care of her, I protested. I'm busy. Since there are hardly any customers, you might as well help me out, Jane insisted, pushing her daughter's care onto us. To her, we were just free babysitters. To fully unload her responsibilities, Jan and her mother started visiting our restaurant frequently. I'm sorry about my family. I didn't mean to cause trouble for you or the restaurant, Kelly, John S. apologized after they left Riker behind and left. Our business wasn't booming, and their disruptions were part of the problem. Our regular customers, who preferred a peaceful atmosphere, stopped coming. It wasn't just about John anymore. Poor Riker was caught in the middle. Holding my niece close, I sighed deeply. We kept going, despite the weight on our hearts. But a few weeks later, things took an unexpected turn with my in-laws. One evening, after closing the restaurant, Jan and my in-laws appeared at our doorstep. Instead of at the restaurant, they were at our house. When John and I opened the door, Jan abruptly handed Riker to us, looking bewildered. I'm leaving my child with you. Appreciate it. John and I were stunned, our eyes wide. What do you mean? I asked, though I suspected it was because we couldn't have kids. You're not busy since the restaurant is quiet, right? So you can be Riker's parents, she explained, deciding to completely abandon her niece. Even the grandparents didn't want to care for her. John's face flushed with anger at their callousness. This is too much. You're giving up on Riker. That's not right. I thought you guys, without kids, could handle her, Jan said, her tone tense. Riker, sensing the tension, nervously sucked her finger and looked down. But you don't have to worry about that. Take her back, I firmly replied. Kids need their moms. Even a 2-year-old knows that. You can't refuse. If there was a serious reason, maybe, but I can't agree to selfish excuses like it's too much trouble. I rejected her request firmly. We're busy with work, and honestly, I don't find a child with my ex-husband's blood cute at all. I said, shocked at my own words. That's something a parent should never say, especially not in front of Ricker. It's unacceptable. My in-laws sided with her, sharing her views. Jane and her parents would only make this poor child suffer, they said. Realizing this, I held Riker close, feeling a strong sense of duty. I have to make this child happy. So are you really okay with Riker being our child? I asked Jane firmly. She smirked. Of course, and I'll sell you all her baby stuff and toys. I don't need them anymore, so you better buy everything, she said, her parents smirking behind her. Not only were they avoiding their responsibilities, but they also wanted to make money from us. They were beyond redemption, but if it meant cutting ties with them, it was a win for us. When I talked to John about it, he agreed. Yes, we'll buy everything you're selling, but in return, stay away from us, I told them firmly. Jane stepped closer, asserting, don't act so superior. You're just a daughter-in-law. I was going to sell them anyway. Just be prepared for a big bill. After using us to their advantage, Jan and her parents left in a hurry. True to her word, Jan sent a box of Riker's used toys and clothes, along with a hefty bill of $30,000. With the restaurant struggling and our finances stretched thin, I couldn't afford such extravagance for Riker. But I still had some savings from before I got married. No, this is too expensive. It shouldn't cost that much, I muttered nervously. Despite my concerns about depleting our savings, using items Riker was familiar with might provide her with comfort, right? As I anxiously waited for a response, as I watched my husband in silent contemplation, he finally agreed with me. You're right. Rhea would be happier with us than in her old home. Thank you, honey. Let's take care of this child together. And so, we ended up raising Rhea as our own daughter, alongside managing the restaurant. Without the in-laws around, our stress lessened, and both my husband and I cherished Rhea deeply. She was so sweet, and I felt inspired to do anything for her. But our lives weren't just about adding a new family member. What a busy day it's been. Indeed, who would have thought our restaurant would be so packed? At the end of a long day, my husband and I shared a laugh. Our once quiet restaurant was now booming, thanks to a recent addition to the menu, an omelet that had unexpectedly gone viral on social media. What surprised us the most was how this idea came about. Who would have guessed it was Rhea's suggestion? As I affectionately patted her head, I recounted. While we were brainstorming new menu items, Rhea suddenly said omelette. It caught us off guard. Since we didn't offer omelettes at the time, I whipped up a special one loaded with eggs and topped it with our signature demi glace sauce. Following John's approach, we personalized each serving to suit our customers' tastes. It turned out to be a huge hit, and Rhea continued to lend a hand whenever I experimented with new dishes. She'd mumble names like Napoleon or pudding, and when John whipped up those dishes, they were a hit. Customers would exclaim, "This is exactly what I was craving," and happily dig in. With the old challenges of running the restaurant behind us, life became more exciting with Rhea around. I couldn't help but wonder if Rhea possessed some mysterious power. It seemed possible. The other day, when I couldn't find my glasses, Rhea was just staring behind a shelf. Lo and behold, there they were, packed behind it. Wow, Rhea, that's incredible. Of course, it was all thanks to John's setup. When we praised them, Rhea and my husband would exchange happy smiles. They looked like they had always been a part of our family. Initially worried, I now felt confident about providing Rhea with a good life. Even in ordinary moments, I felt a profound sense of happiness. But then, something unbelievable caught my attention. What's this? Hey, come see this. John, glancing at his phone, exclaimed in surprise. Intrigued, I peered over to look at the screen, where a news article was displayed. The contents shocked me so much that my eyes widened. Can this really happen? Surprised, Rhea observed us, then grabbed a box of building blocks and slowly offered it to us. We shook it, hearing something inside. Is there something in here? I asked, meeting Rhea's serious gaze. If Rhea was this focused, there must be something important. We carefully examined the blocks and were stunned. An underlying anger began to simmer within me. To think she had hidden something like this. Unforgivable. Despite my anger, we knew we had to wait for the right moment. A few weeks later, in the dead of night, Jan and I were startled awake by the doorbell. Careful not to disturb Rare, we cautiously opened the front door to find Jolie standing there with disheveled hair. "Give me back my daughter, now." Her sudden demand left John and me exchanging looks. "Weren't you the one who left her with us? What's changed now? Weren't we supposed to stay out of each other's lives?" I challenged, but before we could shut the door, Jolie forcefully wedged her foot in, refusing to leave. "She's my child. I'm here to take her back," she insisted. We explained it wasn't possible, but Jolie kept pushing to take her daughter, causing a scene. Frustrated by her selfishness, I sighed deeply and crossed my arms. "Please don't take your frustrations out on us because of your work troubles," I said. Caught off guard, Jolie's face flushed red with embarrassment. "What? How did you know about that?" she stammered, clearly flustered. Recalling the recent news I had seen on John's phone, it was about a scandal at the chain restaurant where Jolie's family worked. They had been caught using expired ingredients to save money, leading to a widespread food poisoning incident. The backlash on media and social platforms had been severe, and the chain's reputation had taken a nosedive. Everything was fine until we gave up our daughter, and then this happened. "It must be because she's gone," I mused. Jolie, clearly facing severe consequences, erupted in anger. "What are you talking about? Rare has nothing to do with this." "No, she's not involved," I assured her. Since then, everything had been going downhill. According to Jolie, their troubles didn't end there. Her mother lost a wallet containing a large sum of money, and her father was involved in a car accident that cost $6,000 in damages. Jolie blamed Rare for their misfortunes. "Since you took Rare, your restaurant has been thriving. It's hard not to think she's involved." Her words left John and me speechless. While we couldn't blame Rare for all their misfortunes, we couldn't deny the strange coincidence. Maybe I should help them a bit. Despite their actions, it's hard to watch them suffer, I pondered aloud. But before I could say more, Jolie raised her voice sharply. "With that child, we would be secure, and all this misfortune would come your way instead." Her words extinguished any sympathy I had. "We will never give Rare back to you. It's only been a few months, but we've grown to love her as if she were our own. We can't hand her over to someone who only wants her back for their own gain," I declared, glaring at Jolie with a firm expression. "Don't speak to my wife like that. Your greed is apparent. I care for Rare far more than you ever did. I won't let her go, no matter what." "Please, leave," John added, his tone resolute. I couldn't forgive Jolie for treating her own daughter like a commodity, something to exploit. Our restaurant's success was due to John's meticulous attention to detail, seasoning and presenting each dish according to our customers' preferences. He had utilized hints from Rare to cater to individual tastes, offering rich flavors, light options, or a touch of spice. His creative plating, including edible flowers for Instagram-worthy dishes and generous portions for hearty appetites, had become a hit. While Rare had contributed to our success, it was John's dedication that truly made a difference. "She's not a cash cow to be returned," I retorted with disdain. Jolie's face twisted with resentment as Jayan looked at her with pity. "No matter how much you protest, my decision won't change." "I don't want to see you again," Jayan stated firmly. With calm resolve, I handed Jolie a flash drive that she hadn't noticed before. "Our misfortunes aren't because of Rare, but a consequence of actions like yours, right?" Jolie's face paled as she recognized the drive. "That's the one my parents and I have been searching for." "How did you get it?" "It came out of the toys," I replied calmly. "It might actually be worth what you paid for it," I remarked. The flash drive had been inside the box Rare handed to us, and considering her mysterious abilities, I believed there was a reason she had handled it. To our surprise, the drive contained data from a secret ledger, revealing receipts from suppliers and evidence of inflated charges. Rare's parents, former executives at the company, had been embezzling funds by overcharging for ingredients and pocketing the excess. The calculation showed embezzled funds totaling about $2 million. Rare had sensed something was wrong and hid the drive, along with some blocks. "I can't believe we missed it even after searching the house," Jolie muttered in disbelief. She snatched the flash drive from my hand, looking relieved. "I've already informed your company," she declared confidently. But as the reality of her actions sank in, she began to tremble. "No, if they find out about the embezzlement, our lives are over," she confessed, her bravado crumbling. Begging for forgiveness, she pleaded with us to help cover up her crimes. but her past actions couldn't be erased. My husband, firm in his resolve, advised against forgiveness. "There's nothing more we can do but face reality," he muttered. As Jolie dialed the phone with trembling hands, tears streaking her face, I listened to her conversation with my in-laws. It was a bitter reckoning for them all. They screamed in shock and then asked to speak with me. As soon as I took the phone, my in-laws pleaded, "Please, you have to do something. We're begging you." I listened in silence, but after a moment, I took a deep breath. "You must face the consequences of your own actions. Goodbye." With that, I ended the call and returned the smartphone to Jolie. "Think about it carefully. If you truly want to raise Rare, I'll consider it. Is that what you really want? I doubt we'll ever see eye to eye, no matter how much we talk. Please leave. Your presence is unwelcome. If you don't, I'll have to involve the authorities." Jolie flinched and backed away, so I firmly shut the door without mercy. Peeking from the second-floor window, I watched as she walked away, her figure fading into the distance. That was the end of our connection. Later on, my in-laws and Jolie were dismissed from the company for their embezzlement. They were sued and eventually arrested. After serving their sentences, they would have to repay the $2 million they stole. Even after their release, they would endure the consequences for a long time. It's true what they say, you reap what you sow. Meanwhile, we officially adopted Rare as our daughter. Jen and I continued to manage our restaurant and witness Rare's growth. Our business thrived, and while the extent of Rare's abilities remained unknown, one thing was certain. Jen and I loved Rare more than anyone else. After all, she was our precious daughter. My daughter, Erin, now a college student, has been living independently for about a year despite receiving a reasonable monthly allowance and supposedly dedicating herself to a part-time job. When Erin returned home, she looked worn out and thin. "Are you pushing yourself too hard? Are you getting enough to eat?" I asked with concern. "I'm managing with things like cereal," she replied, "but I crave more." Yet Erin fell silent, confirming my uneasy suspicions. She thanked me, saying, "Thanks for the $13 a month, Mom." I couldn't believe what I heard. $13? I've been transferring $1,300 every month. My name is Laura. People have always said I have poor judgment in men. My first boyfriend in college cheated on me within 3 months. Then I dated a younger guy who became a freeloader, likely because I was footing the bills. The man I married after 4 years of dating turned out to be both a spendthrift and a cheat. After divorcing him, I raised Erin as a single mom for 10 years. Erin, whom I once perceived as young and naive, has matured into a dependable daughter, taking the lead in household chores. Despite my insistence that she need not exert herself so much, she remains steadfast, asserting, "You're already doing so much for us, Mom. I worry you'll burn out if I don't help." Moreover, Erin never slacks in her studies. "I want to contribute like you, Mom. I don't want to be a burden," she expresses, diligently preparing for her college entrance exams since her high school days. Though she may exhibit traces of naivety, I wholeheartedly believe she's an exceptional daughter. After diligent studying, Erin received the long-awaited acceptance letter from a prestigious public university. Together, we eagerly searched the bulletin board until we spotted Erin's applicant number, and we clasped hands in joy. As the days swiftly passed before her college journey began, we decided to take a celebratory hot spring trip, relishing every moment of the relaxation. While immersed in the soothing warmth up to my shoulders, I glimpsed my daughter, her cheeks rosy with contentment, and I found her endearing words, "Mom, this is so wonderful," deeply touching. In that serene moment, I silently vowed to protect her with all my heart, no matter what challenges lay ahead. As Erin embarked on her college journey, she left the nest with a blend of pride in her growth and a hint of loneliness. I bid her farewell, watching her set off on her new path. Since Erin began living independently, our nightly phone calls became a cherished ritual. With her knack for household chores and reliability beyond her years, I didn't harbor major concerns about her solo living arrangements. Yet the notion of a young woman navigating life alone stirred a lingering unease within me. I questioned if my worries were excessive, but Erin's cheerful conversations each evening brought me solace. Those end-of-day calls became my much-needed moments of relaxation. Erin would often share details about her college life, her classes, her new friends, her involvement in the music club, and the intriguing upperclassmen she encountered there. Hearing about her vibrant daily experiences filled me with joy. Near the semester's end, Erin's voice carried a hint of tension as she shared, You know what? To my delight, she revealed the happy news. I've started dating someone. The lucky guy was Ian, the senior she met at the club. While I congratulated her with genuine enthusiasm, a twinge of concern lingered within me. As the daughter of someone often deemed unlucky in love, I couldn't shake the worry that perhaps my own romantic misfortunes had been inherited by her. Sensing my unease, Aaron cautiously inquired, "Would you like to meet him someday?" I reassured her with a bright tone, "Absolutely." When summer vacation began, Aaron returned home, accompanied by Ian. Upon meeting him, I discovered Ian to be a well-groomed and polite young man. "Pleasure to meet you, I'm Ian. I'm dating your daughter," he greeted me with a firm handshake as soon as I opened the door. His demeanor exuded responsibility, easing any lingering concerns I had. Ian sported no tattoos or piercings, yet carried himself with a refined air. The rolled-up sleeves of his shirt added a touch of classic charm, evoking memories of my own youthful attractions. A curious sense of nostalgia washed over me in his presence. We sat down for iced tea together, and I quickly noticed that Ian was not only responsible but also incredibly thoughtful. He graciously offered to carry the tray of iced tea I had prepared and promptly refilled my empty cup when it ran low. "Ian seems like a really decent guy," I whispered to Aaron when he briefly left the table. Aaron chuckled shyly. "Well, Mom, you were worried, weren't you?" "Of course, darling. It's only natural for a mother," I replied. Aaron laughed, "But honestly, Mom, I'm doing just fine. I think I've got better luck in love than you." We both shared a hearty laugh at that, and I couldn't help but agree. You might be onto something there. As the second semester commenced, Aaron, determined not to be a burden, took on multiple jobs to support herself. Despite my monthly financial support for emergencies, she seemed intent on saving every penny for the future. Trusted by her employers, Aaron juggled school and worked tirelessly, leaving little time for her club activities. Concerned, I asked, "Are you sure you're managing? Don't hesitate to use the money I send, and do you need me to come help with chores?" Aaron replied softly, "I'm okay," her voice tinged with wariness. Since Aaron couldn't attend the club anymore, Ian began frequenting our home out of concern. "You have your own worries, don't you? I can handle things myself, really. I'm fine," Aaron reassured him. "If you say so," Ian replied, though his worry lingered. One evening, returning from work, I was greeted by the aroma of a surprise hamburger Ian had prepared. It was delicious. Having Ian around makes things easier. Aaron's cheerful tone betrayed her fondness for him. As time passed, Aaron's calls grew less frequent due to her busy schedule. She'd update me sporadically, but it was evident she was juggling a lot. Despite my reassurances, I couldn't shake the worry. Ian made sure she ate well on his visits, but on other days, Aaron resorted to cereal for sustenance. Despite my financial support, it seemed she was struggling. Aaron wasn't one to squander money, so the situation puzzled me deeply. When I confided in my mother, she brushed off my concerns, remarking, "You're worrying excessively about your adult daughter. It's hard to let go." Perhaps she was right. Aaron would turn 19 soon. Though she still seemed like a child to me, the world saw her as an adult, especially with Ian by her side. Maybe I should just trust that she'll ask for help if she really needs it, I mused, attempting to ease my anxiety. Yet finding peace amid my worries proved challenging. Winter break arrived, and Aaron's return home revealed a noticeable change. She appeared thinner than before, her once slender frame now visibly diminished. Dark circles mirrored her tired eyes. When she explained she had been working late the previous night, coming straight home thereafter, concern flooded me. "Aaron, are you pushing yourself too hard lately? Are you eating properly?" I inquired, unable to hide my worry. "I'm eating properly, cereal and such," Aaron responded. Her sudden silence spoke volumes. Hastily she added, "But I've mastered the art of cereal." Her smile strained. It seemed forced, prompting a gnawing worry within me. Was she truly eating well? Despite my consistent financial support and her diligent work, a troubling sensation crept over me. Aaron's next words only heightened my unease. "Thanks for the 13 every month, Mom." 13? "I send you 1,300 every month," I replied, stunned by the revelation. A sense of foreboding gripped me. "Aaron, where do you keep your checkbook and debit card?" "It's in my desk drawer at home," Aaron replied. "I'm heading to your place now, Aaron. There's something I need to check," I announced suddenly. Aaron looked surprised by my abrupt declaration but nodded in agreement. As we rode the train to her apartment, conversation flowed between us. The first topic broached was the matter of her mistaken allowance. Erin explained that she maintained a living expenses account for her part-time earnings and a savings account where I deposited her allowance. She had recently depleted her savings purchasing textbooks and other necessities for the new semester. When she checked her account balance, it was a mere $78. Despite my consistent financial support, she had never inquired about the exact amount. Assuming the $78 was the sum total of my contributions over 6 months, she calculated it to approximately $13 per month. Is that about right? I asked. I thought so, but I thought you might be struggling too, Mom. Honestly, you're such a silly girl. How much do you think I earned? Don't underestimate me, Erin retorted to my semi-joking remark. Her words seemed to ease the tension momentarily, but a shadow crossed her face once more. It dawned on me why Erin hadn't accessed the money I sent. Someone must have gained access to her bank account, and the most suspicious candidate was Ian, who frequented her apartment. Erin appeared to be in denial, and I found myself reluctant to entertain the idea that her seemingly kind boyfriend would be involved in theft. I nervously watched as the train approached the nearest station. Upon reaching Erin's home, we hurriedly retrieved her checkbook and made a beeline for the nearest ATM at the bank. With evening drawing near and the clock ticking past late afternoon, time was of the essence. We inserted the checkbook into the ATM and anxiously awaited the update. The balance displayed on the checkbook left us both speechless. Despite the consistent deposits of $1,300 each month, there were clear signs of frequent withdrawals. Erin's complexion paled as she whispered softly, "Why?" Concerned by her visibly strained state, I escorted Erin to a nearby coffee shop, where I resolved to delve deeper into the issue at hand. My primary focus was understanding how her checkbook was being managed. Erin disclosed that she stored her checkbook and debit card in a locked drawer within her desk. However, the key to this drawer was stored elsewhere, making it accessible to anyone entering the apartment. The only individual with the potential to access her room in her absence was her boyfriend, Ian, who possessed the spare key. Furthermore, the PIN associated with her debit card was the same as the one she commonly used for her other cards. It became evident that someone had likely observed her during a money withdrawal. I must admit, I was careless when setting up the account. I'm sorry, honey. Mom should have been more careful, I confess. I never anticipated someone else would access the money. It's not your fault, Mom. I should have been more vigilant in managing it, Erin responded. Well, we both share responsibility, I interjected, but the person at fault here is the one who spent money without permission. Yeah, you're right, Erin replied, her tone lacking its usual vigor. Understandably so, she had been betrayed by the person she likely trusted the most. Witnessing my daughter so crestfallen tugged at my heartstrings. I'll handle this, I declared unexpectedly. What? You may want to downplay this, but it's a serious offense. We need to gather evidence and report it to the police. The police? Erin's voice quivered, clearly unsettled. Yes, it's necessary, but don't worry. I'll handle everything. It's all to ensure your peace of mind during college, all right? I reassured her, and Erin nodded reluctantly. A few days later, I sought the help of a private detective agency, the same one that assisted me when my husband was suspected of infidelity. I need you to investigate my daughter's boyfriend. His name is Ian Mack. He's a sophomore in economics at the same university as my daughter. We suspect he may have been misusing the money I've been sending to her, I explained, displaying a photo of Ian from Erin's messages on my phone. They agreed to take on the case without hesitation, despite their steep fees. It was a necessary expense to resolve this matter for Erin's sake. As we awaited the results of the investigation, Erin chose to commute to college from my house due to her anxiety. The journey took over an hour each way, which proved challenging for Erin, but she found solace in returning home each evening. One night, she prepared granola for dinner. Just like you said, I've become quite the cereal connoisseur, Erin remarked with a confident wink. My heart ached at the realization that she must have been eating this meal almost daily. A month later, the investigation's findings arrived. There was undeniable evidence that Ian had been making unauthorized withdrawals from Erin's account. According to the investigator, shortly after Ian and Erin began dating, his lifestyle markedly improved, as attested by his friends. What shocked me even more was that Ian's transgressions didn't stop there. It turned out he was involved with several other women. I was handed a collection of photographs, Ian with his arm around different women, happily dining at restaurants, enjoying arcades, and strolling through hotel districts. In each image, a man with a distinctive beauty mark, a teardrop tattoo, was unmistakably Ian. It seems Ian hasn't just been using the money you've been sending your daughter to impress his friends, he's also been using it to maintain relationships with multiple girlfriends, the investigator grimly informed me. Thank you, I replied, bowing my head deeply. It was time to take action. I filed a complaint with the police and sent written explanations of Ian's actions to his parents, his university, and all of his girlfriends. Initially, Ian denied everything, but he eventually confessed when confronted by multiple girlfriends. Naturally, all of the girlfriends, including Aaron, severed ties with him. As a result of the police investigation, Ian was expelled from the university and sent back to his parents' home. Fortunately, his parents were reasonable and came to my house with a humble gift to apologize. For the time being, his parents have agreed to reimburse the stolen money. I'll make our stupid son repay this, even if it kills him, Ian's father vowed, his voice choked with emotion. According to what Aaron heard through the grapevine, Ian is now working multiple jobs to repay his parents. By the time this ordeal settled, spring had arrived. To mark the end of this unfortunate chapter, we decided to celebrate Aaron's spring break with our first trip to a hot spring resort in over a year. Erin had managed to reclaim her life since then, her complexion and physique returning to a healthy state. As we soaked in the warm baths, indulged in delicious food from the inn, and relaxed in front of the TV, I felt like we were finally able to enjoy some peace after a long while. Just before drifting off, Erin's voice came from beneath the covers. Hey, what's on your mind? Remember how you and Dad split because of his reckless spending and affairs, right? Erin's words caught me off guard. My ex-husband, much like Ian, was someone who flaunted wealth to impress others, yet struggled to cover basic expenses due to his extravagant habits and moral lapses. I served my ex-husband with divorce papers, just as you did with Ian. It seems we have a pattern of choosing similar types of men, don't we? Erin offered a rueful smile. Indeed, we'll have to be more cautious from now on, I replied, trying to sound upbeat despite feeling a bit uneasy. By the way, you seem happier lately. Did you meet someone special? No way, it's not a boyfriend, Erin exclaimed teasingly. Could he possibly become one? Lately, I had been developing a friendship with the investigator assigned to our case, but I hadn't mentioned it to Erin yet. Even so, was there a spark, or was it just the bond between a mother and daughter who've been through a lot together? Hang on, are you sure it's going to work out this time, Mom? Erin teased with a playful chuckle. Well, it should, right? Unlike your father, he seems serious and dependable. But let's get serious here. If it's my turn after all this, Mom, it won't be a laughing matter, I replied, adopting a serious tone. Got it? I'll tread carefully, Erin responded solemnly. But then, unable to contain our amusement, we exchanged a look and burst into laughter. Mom chose my toxic stepsister over me and kicked me out, but years later, I'm engaged and his company dropped her husband's contract as a client. And now she's blaming me. I'm a 26-year-old woman engaged to my fiancé, Jeff, who's also 26. We met on a dating app 4 years ago and have been together ever since. Jeff is my soulmate, the one person who has never disappointed me. My life hasn't been easy. My parents split up when I was only 2 years old, and my dad never really bothered with me afterward. While he did pay child support, he never showed much interest in being a part of my life. My mom, who's 48, wasn't exactly a great mom either. She was more focused on her own interests than on raising me. I basically grew up with nannies and babysitters. When I got older, I realized my mom was more into her social life than being a parent. She was a freelance artist and made enough money, thanks to child support, to not worry about me much. Honestly, I think if it wasn't for the money, she would have kicked me out long ago. She never seemed attached to me and mostly just waited for me to grow up and leave her alone. When I was about 13, my mom started dating Matt, who was 50. He had a daughter my age named Jess. When they first came over, my mom stressed how important it was for me to behave well. It struck me because she'd never cared about that with my previous boyfriends. Normally, she'd just let me know guests were coming, and I'd hide in my room until they left. But this time, I sensed my mom was serious about this guy, Matt. Otherwise, she wouldn't have bothered about my behavior. It made me realize she wouldn't have even noticed me if she wasn't into him. When I first met Matt and Jess, they seemed nice, and the introduction went smoothly. Little did I know what was coming next. Matt started coming over more often, and it felt like they were practically moving in together. It didn't bother me much as long as they left me alone. I was fine with it. They became a regular presence, with Jess visiting occasionally as she split her time between her mom's and our place. At first, they either treated me okay or just ignored me, which suited me fine since I wasn't too fond of any of them. I didn't care much about my mom, so caring about people connected to her was hard. All I wanted was some peace and quiet, which I had for a while. Then they decided to move in together permanently. I wouldn't have minded, but my mom said I had to share my room with my stepsister now. I refused. That room was mine, always had been, and it was the only place I felt at peace. In that house, I had my own little corner, and I wasn't about to give up my freedom by sharing my room with someone I barely knew. When I told my mom I wasn't going to share, we had a huge argument. She threatened to kick me out if I didn't obey. I was only 14, but I knew my rights. I felt like I had to stand my ground because my mom wasn't exactly trustworthy. Plus, it just made sense. I knew she couldn't kick me out until I was an adult without getting in trouble. So I called her bluff and told her she couldn't do it. She was frustrated but had to give in and let me keep my room. Instead, she decided to transform the basement into Jess's room. It wasn't as nice as mine, but my mom worked hard to make it comfortable. When she was finished, it looked just as good as any other room in the house. So I didn't see why it was such a big deal. But that's when Jess started disliking me, and I think it had something to do with my mom announcing to everyone during the house tour that Jess had to live in the basement because I wasn't willing to share my room. I couldn't understand why she'd make such a public announcement. I still can't figure out why she did it. Maybe she wanted to make me feel guilty by announcing it in front of Jess, but it just made me uncomfortable. Or perhaps she enjoys drama and wanted Jess to know I refused to share my room, which caused tension between us because Jess didn't seem like the type to let things slide. My mom's prediction was right. Jess didn't let it go, and from that day on, she treated me like the enemy. Even though she spent half the month with her mom, the days she was with us were unbearable. She was constantly mean to me and made hurtful remarks right to my face. Let me paint a picture of the things she would say. Once, she suggested that my dad left my mom because of me, and then she laughed as if it were a joke. She'd also poke fun at my looks, especially because I was a bit chubby back then. At school, she had a group of mean girls, and she never missed a chance to join in on bullying me with them. Before, she and her friends would just ignore me, and I preferred that. We were never friends, but that was better than being enemies. What hurt the most was that I hadn't even done anything to her. She was just upset that I didn't want to share my room with her. It seemed like such a silly reason for her to hate me so much and make my life miserable. My room was my sanctuary, especially with a mom like mine. Who could blame me for wanting my own space? Besides, if any of them had bothered to get to know me, I might have considered sharing. But she was a stranger, and I wasn't comfortable sacrificing my privacy for her. I never complained to my mom or Matt because they knew and didn't care. They'd turn a blind eye to my struggles because I wasn't important to them. So I had to endure it and let her walk all over me. I tried to stand up for myself sometimes, but it only made things worse. Our parents would intervene, and I'd end up getting grounded because, well, they favored her. She'd cry a bit and get away with it, but I couldn't fake tears like her, and I wasn't that manipulative. So I'd be the one punished while she got off easy, and I had to deal with it. Growing up there was awful, and I despised my life. When I was finally kicked out around my 18th birthday, I felt more relieved than anything else. I had endured my family's chaos for years, and it only got worse over time. Jess remained a nightmare to deal with, and our parents blindly supported her, no matter what. Over 4 years, she turned our entire high school year against me, and I was left with only a few friends who still talked to me. Everyone else despised me just because she did, and that was reason enough. It took a toll on my mental health, and I struggled in every aspect. I gained a lot of weight from binge eating, which worsened my appearance. I was overweight, battling acne, and my hair was a mess. On top of that, my grades were suffering, so not only did I look bad, but I also seemed unintelligent to everyone else. I had nothing going for me and hit rock bottom. Home life wasn't any better with Jess and my parents. My mom became increasingly unbearable, constantly comparing me to Jess, despite knowing she made my life worse. Things were bad before my mom married Matt and they moved in together. but they weren't this bad. It was disheartening that my mother didn't care about me before, but after she married Matt, things went from bad to worse. She went from being indifferent to actively making me feel terrible about myself. It felt like I was living with mean girls at home too. It was clear to me that Jess was the daughter my mother truly wanted, and I was just dealt the wrong cards. Both of them wished I'd disappear, and honestly, I wanted the same thing. My mother and Jess despised me, and Matt didn't care. With no other family besides my mother, and no contact with my grandparents, I had nowhere to turn. I didn't feel right asking friends for help, so I toughed it out at home to at least have a roof over my head and food until I turned 18. But then, a couple of weeks before my birthday, something happened, and I was kicked out that same day. It was a weekend etched in my memory like it happened yesterday, one of the most traumatic and stressful days of my life. We had recently graduated, and Jess had started hanging out with a new, older crowd. She befriended someone whose brother, in his last year of college, became her boyfriend. They'd socialize with his friends, who were all older than us. I was aware of their activities but didn't dare tell my parents, fearing it would backfire. So I kept quiet about Jess drinking and likely smoking weed. I had no interest in those things. I was already struggling with weight and grades. I didn't need more trouble. But that day, I must have left my room unlocked before showering. Suddenly, I heard banging on the bathroom door, and my mother was screaming at me to come out immediately. I quickly dressed and rushed out to see what was going on. When I emerged from the shower, my mother, Matt, and Jess were waiting in my room, wearing serious expressions. My mother produced a bunch of empty beer bottles from under my bed, and even more damning, a large plastic baggie filled with what looked like grams of weed. I knew it wasn't mine, and so did Jess. But my parents didn't know that. Somehow, she must have planted it while I was away and then told my mom. They began yelling at me, accusing me of being a terrible person. It wasn't just about the alcohol and drugs. My mom also criticized me for being a disappointment and for eating all the food. She called me a waste, convinced I'd never amount to anything and would just keep living with them, wasting their money. I repeatedly tried to explain that none of it was mine, and I didn't know how it ended up in my room, but she wouldn't believe me. She got furious when I suggested Jess might have planted it to frame me. She yelled that I was always jealous of her and would never be as good at anything, which is why I was trying to shift the blame. I was in tears, but she didn't seem to care and kept yelling. Eventually, she stopped and told me I had to leave. I was baffled and asked her where I was supposed to go. She said she didn't care as long as I left because she was fed up with me. When I insisted I wasn't leaving, she threatened to call the cops and warned that at almost 18, they'd take drug charges seriously. She didn't want an addict in her house draining her resources. She said I had to fend for myself now because she was done pretending to be a happy family with someone who didn't deserve it. I begged her not to kick me out, knowing I had nowhere else to go and no money of my own. But she remained unmoved. She gave me until the end of the day to leave, or she'd call the police herself. I was stunned by her heartlessness, and even more so by the fact that neither Matt nor Jess objected. They acted like everything was normal. After a lot of tears and pleading, I reluctantly started packing my things. Between facing drug charges and living on the streets, I preferred the latter. By evening, I was finished packing. As I left the house, nobody said goodbye, and I didn't look back either. I spent a couple of hours at the park, but it got too cold, so I decided to go to a friend's place for the night, hoping they'd let me stay. I went to my best friend Amy's house and asked if I could stay for a few days. She already knew about my parents, so I didn't have to explain much. I shared the events of the day with her, and she was shocked. She suggested her parents could help if I let them. I'd always kept the way my parents treated me secret. Even from Amy's parents, unsure if anyone would believe me. I felt uncomfortable sharing such personal details of my life with others. That day, Amy insisted I tell her parents everything, and they were just as appalled as she was. They called my mother, trying to reason with her, but she was rude and unyielding. Realizing they couldn't change her mind, they did something incredibly kind. They offered to let me live with them for as long as I needed, promising their full support. They were well off, so money wasn't an issue, and Amy was willing to share her room with me because she cared about me. I spent the next few years living with them, attending community college since it was the only place I could get into with my grades. I worked and saved money to find my own place, but Amy's parents never pressured me to leave. They made sure I felt comfortable and supported. About 3 years ago, I finally saved enough to move out. I was proud of myself and deeply grateful to Amy and her parents. I couldn't have done it without them. Even on the day I moved out, Amy's parents helped me settle into my new place and assured me I was always welcome back to visit or even live with them again. It was a turning point in my life. By then, I had shed a lot of weight, improved my health, and felt much better overall. I was also earning enough to support myself and had spent a good amount of time working on myself. I decided to start dating because I eventually wanted to get married and needed to start looking. Before Jeff, I had met a few guys, but things never progressed far. When I met Jeff, everything clicked. I realized he was the one meant for me. He was funny, cute, and seemed genuinely interested in me. When we started dating, I didn't know he was wealthy or set to inherit his family's chain of restaurants. I just liked him for who he was. It was only after a few months that he shared his family background, and I learned about his future inheritance. Some might assume that learning about his wealth could alter things for me, but honestly, he remained the same person I knew all along. Knowing about his background didn't change my feelings, and I loved him just as deeply as before. After about a year of dating, we decided to move in together, and he introduced me to his family a few months prior. I got along well with everyone, and they all liked me. Everything seemed perfect, so when he proposed recently, saying yes was an easy decision. We've been engaged for 2 months now, and everything's been going wonderfully. Then, about 2 weeks ago, I received an email from Jess. We hadn't spoken in almost 8 years, and I hadn't heard from my family since I was kicked out. I was puzzled as to why she'd reach out now, especially to make amends. Enough time had passed, and neither of us seemed interested in fixing things. So when I read her email apologizing for everything and admitting she'd been awful, I was really confused. She confessed to orchestrating everything in my room because she simply loathed me for no apparent reason. It was baffling why she would confess to it years later, and I sensed something wasn't right about the situation. The timing was suspicious, especially since I had just gotten engaged, and she likely knew about it from social media or word of mouth. Given that we attended the same high school, I decided to investigate further. After some digging, I discovered that Jess's husband owned the business that supplied plastic containers for takeaway orders to Jeff's restaurants. It was relatively easy for me to gather this information by creating a fake profile and stalking her online. Her husband's bio mentioned his line of work, which aligned with what I already knew about Jeff's business plans. I immediately informed Jeff about the connection. In the past few years, I've made a conscious effort to distance myself from my old life, avoiding following any family members online and asking friends not to update me on their news. So I had no idea that Jess had gotten married until I discovered her husband's connection to our business dealings. Upon learning this, Jeff and I decided to terminate our contract with him. The costs were high, and more significantly, I couldn't bring myself to engage with Jess again, even on a professional level. Jeff also mentioned that the quality of the products from Jess's husband had deteriorated over time, and they were already considering switching suppliers. So last week, a few days after I received that email from Jess, Jeff held a meeting with her husband and ended their contract. However, Jess seems to believe that I orchestrated this to seek revenge on her. She's been accusing me of this through emails and social media posts, despite our lack of contact for almost a decade. While I might harbor some resentment, it's not the driving force behind her husband losing our contract. A few days ago, she posted on social media stating that many clients had been dropping them lately, and this was the final blow. However, she insisted that our decision was fueled solely by spite and labeled it highly unprofessional. She even tagged our Facebook page, creating quite a messy situation. While I can't deny there was a personal aspect to our decision, she also mentioned in her post that she and her husband had been losing clients consistently. While I feel somewhat remorseful, especially considering her struggles, I believe our decision was based on both personal and professional factors. I feel a bit guilty for influencing my fiancé to sever ties with my estranged stepsister's husband, Ida. Update: Jeff consulted with his dad's lawyers, who agree that our actions were justified. We've decided to pursue legal action against them, demanding the removal of their defamatory posts and pressing charges. The truth is, the products we were receiving were overpriced and subpar, so naturally, we sought better options elsewhere. It's purely coincidental that I'm married to the owner of that business. Instead of improving their services, she chose to tarnish our reputation on social media. It's absurd that I even felt sympathy for her given everything she put me through. Your support has helped me see things clearly, so thank you all for your comments and encouragement. Update 2. Jeff and his father initiated a defamation lawsuit against Jess and her husband a few days ago. We're scheduled to meet with a court-appointed mediator soon. Meanwhile, my mother has once again taken it upon herself to defend her stepdaughter. It feels like a high school drama, but thankfully, I can ignore them now without worrying about my living situation. Despite my mother's attempts to provoke me, I've chosen to block her and focus on my own life. I refuse to let their negativity affect me. I'm engaged to the man of my dreams, and I'm about to start a new chapter in my life. I have no room for them or their drama. Update 3. Quick update for you all. We won the defamation lawsuit thanks to the relentless efforts of my father-in-law's lawyers. They were able to swiftly resolve the matter, holding Jess and her husband accountable for their actions. Hopefully, this will prompt them to prioritize their business and meet their clients' expectations. With the legal battle behind us, Jeff and I can now shift our focus entirely to planning our wedding. I'm beyond excited to marry Jeff, my soulmate. I've waited so long to find someone like him, and now that I have, I'm holding on tight. My name is Luda Okojima. I'm 29 and work for a big international company. I grew up in the United States until I was 18. My dad is Japanese and my mom is white. He's the boss at the company where I work. I learned 5 languages when I was very young, thanks to tutoring. Now I'm in charge of the company's operations in Japan, all thanks to my dad's support and the education he gave me. I followed my mom's beliefs and agreed to an arranged marriage. My husband, Akinari, is 6 years older than me. Love wasn't what brought us together. As we started living together, I noticed things that bothered him. The laundry needs washing. We only talk about basic stuff because of our situation. I've been swamped with work emails this week, sorry. That's not an excuse, Han. Lots of wives work and still manage their homes. He was firm about our roles. I work hard, but living together is new to me. I was doing my best to adapt. You're just standing there drinking coffee. How does that help? Drinking coffee helps me wake up and get ready for the day. It's my routine. Mind your own business. Akinari has always been like this since we got married. Maybe he doesn't really love me. He often reminds me that I was homeschooled, so I should be good at housework. Okay, yes, I can handle the housework. You knew that from the beginning. You're so focused on yourself, even though you didn't have a proper education. This household functions because of me. Remember that. We lived in a 4-bedroom house. It was Akinari's dream to own a home, so we took out a loan and got approved. It wasn't something I cared much about, but he made it seem like a manly achievement I wouldn't understand. We never really talked much about our jobs. Education isn't everything, I said simply. Are you testing me? You're belittling my education. According to you, the husband should be the main provider, and the wife should silently follow. Plus, you have a strong accent. People can barely understand you here. We're in Japan. He criticized me for everything. I grew up in the US, so my Japanese won't sound perfect. My mom helped me with pronunciation, but I speak 5 languages. I won't sound like a native Japanese because I'm not. He didn't know this, so he assumed I was unintelligent. I'm going to do the laundry. I'm off today, and Akinari will be leaving for work soon. He's a big germaphobe and always tells me you must bleach the toilet seat after every use. He washed me closely to ensure I cleaned everything after each use. When we moved in together, I used to wear shoes indoors, which is normal in America. Are you white or Japanese? Stop being gross like everyone in America. Take off your shoes, he snapped. In my mind, I thought, I am white. Half white. He was obsessed with cleanliness, always armed with hand sanitizer wipes and disinfectant. At home, he made me feel like I was the messiest person alive. Sorry for the germs, I'd say, wiping things down daily. Honestly, it got annoying. As I loaded the washer, I thought I heard him call, so I went to see what he needed. Did you call me? He snapped back. I did, but you took forever to come. You're just testing my patience. I couldn't hear you. I was doing laundry, and the machine is loud. I explained honestly. You couldn't hear over the washer? Are you deaf? You're pathetic. That's why people without degrees never achieve anything. My husband loved reminding me of my background. I couldn't finish my degree in the US because my father changed jobs. When we moved to Japan, I had to get a degree to work. I passed the entrance exam at a community college known for failures and dropouts. My husband graduated from the University of Tokyo. Coming from America, I didn't realize how prestigious that was until after we got married. But to me, a person's value goes beyond their degree. Is it really such a big deal that I graduated from a community college? What about all the other people in Japan who did too? Do you think less of them as well? I started questioning his values. What's the problem with being a community college graduate? There are many talented people in the world, no matter where they studied. In my company, there are even some who only finished high school, and they're doing great. I don't understand why he's so focused on appearances. In Japan, education is important, but doesn't everyone deserve respect regardless of their education level? I'm sorry, I didn't realize. Oh, so you went to the University of Tokyo, right? Isn't that like the top-notch education? The University of Tokyo? Ha, it's impressive. It's almost funny because you don't even grasp how amazing it is. I'm embarrassed I married someone not as smart as me. If it wasn't for our moms knowing each other, I wouldn't have gone through with this marriage. You don't deserve someone like me. He often talks about himself and points out what I lack compared to him. He enjoys making me feel inferior. In my opinion, people like him shouldn't be the most successful at their jobs. But strangely, his education seemed enough for him to succeed, even though I couldn't relate. I said, I get it. Someone like me doesn't deserve someone as smart as you. Whatever. Just listen to me. I went to the University of Tokyo, so I'll guide you. Just don't try to do things on your own. He's got a big ego and always wants to be in charge. I can't even slightly disagree with him because he always has to have the final word. Okay, time to head to work. Akinari grabbed his suitcase, leaving his coffee half finished, and dashed out the door. I glanced at the table and started tidying up. Isn't this table clean enough? I muttered to myself. 3 hours after he left for work, I got a call. Hello? What? With a subcontractor? Got it. I'll be there ASAP. My company informed me about a mistake found in an order with one of the subcontractors I oversee. They failed to deliver the materials we needed on time for our next project, which would now be delayed. To make matters worse, the materials are coming from overseas, adding extra time and cost. It was supposed to be my day off, but work couldn't wait. When I arrived, everyone was busy, and I immediately met with a team to assess the situation. I reviewed invoices and prioritized materials for the building starting construction soon. I managed a plan for the construction to start next week, but I knew the issue wasn't resolved yet. If the additional materials didn't arrive on time, it would affect future projects too. Normally, the subcontractor would handle such issues, but this time it fell on me. After a tiring day, I finally returned home from work, expecting a relaxing day off. I collapsed into bed and quickly fell asleep. Luda, Luda. I heard my name and stirred awake. I'm sorry, I must have dozed off, I said, though I wasn't truly apologetic. Still, Akinari was quick to judge. You're so privileged. You have a day off and can't even cook dinner for your husband. Instead, you sleep. He was already starting with the criticism, even though I had just woken up. I'm sorry, I had to go to work. There was an urgent situation. I explained, but he retorted, what kind of company calls its employees on their day off? I had a tough day too, you know. He always wanted his problems to take precedence. Perhaps he couldn't handle the idea of his wife being a better employee. It might have been his ego stemming from his prestigious alma mater, the University of Tokyo. Knowing his patterns by now, I tuned him out. Wait, it's 8 o'clock. I glanced at the clock and gasped. I've been asleep for 5 hours since I got home from work. The laundry I started this morning is still in the washer, and I haven't even made dinner. Suddenly, all the tasks I needed to do hit me at once. What are you waiting for? Make dinner first, then clean the tub. After that, do the laundry and the rest of the cleaning. There was a piece of your hair on the floor. It's filthy. His anger hadn't subsided, especially since I had fallen asleep. He never lifted a finger to help around the house since we got married, and he wasn't about to start now. He dictated my tasks and strolled into the living room. I hurried out of bed, washed my face, and started cooking dinner. Just as dinner was almost ready, Akinari's phone rang. It's me. It's happening again. Just stay quiet for now. Don't say a word. If they find out, we could be sued, and I'll bear the brunt of it. Be careful, he said, then abruptly ended the call. Who was that? Work? Did you mention something about being sued? Is there something going on? I already had a sense that something was going on after overhearing his conversation, but he refused to acknowledge it. Please just relax. It's not your concern. Besides, even if there was an issue, your small mind wouldn't be able to handle it, he retorted, hitting me with an unexpected insult. I seethed with anger but focused on getting through dinner without responding. I'm heading to the office, he suddenly declared, swiftly grabbing his phone and wallet. Before I could question him, he was out the door. I noticed he'd left his suitcase behind, and a file protruded from it. What's this? As I examined the file, labeled Okadera Mountain Resort Hotel Construction Plan Details, shock shot through me. I quickly snapped a photo with my phone as evidence before carefully returning everything to its place. By the time Ekaneri returned just before midnight, I was seething. I heard him announce his arrival and head toward the living room. Welcome back, I greeted him. I need dinner first, he demanded. I simply replied, I didn't make any. What? What did you say? You didn't cook? He raised his voice. Yes, I had something more important to attend to, I retorted. You're making excuses again. How much incompetence can one tolerate? That's why I can't stand you, with your community college background. I don't even care if we get a divorce at this point, he declared, his tone deadly serious. He was a staunch believer in patriarchal control, always insisting on having his way. I finally reached my breaking point and snapped back, fine, let's get a divorce. He was taken aback by my response. Divorce? What? He asked, bewildered. I pressed on. You've been belittling me, making me feel unintelligent, but that's far from the truth. My words struck a nerve, leaving him puzzled. What do you mean? He questioned. I haven't mentioned it because I don't care about school. But I actually attended Harvard University, I revealed. Harvard? Do you even know what Harvard is? His shock was evident. Oh, did your mother tell you? I was born and raised in the US. I lived there until I was 18, I explained. You? What? Are you serious? Akinari looked pained. His ego took a hit. He had been proud of his degree from Japan's top university, but this revelation reminded him of even more prestigious institutions. You're joking. There's no way I believe that, he scoffed, growing disrespectful. Are you feeling offended? You seem to resort to inappropriate remarks when you're caught off guard. I guess the University of Tokyo isn't as prestigious as you thought, I said, surprised by my own assertiveness. My feelings aren't hurt. I just need proof. Show me the evidence, he insisted, needing tangible proof to believe my claim. So I showed him a photo from my freshman year orientation. Can you read English? The sign clearly says Harvard Unit. I pointed out. Don't mock me. I can read that, he retorted, scrutinizing the photo himself. Do you believe me now? Why did you hide this from me? If I had known, I wouldn't have married you, he remarked, his ego clearly wounded. Was it necessary to feel superior to your wife? I challenged. And no, my mom never mentioned it. And what do you mean you didn't care? It's like you weren't interested in me at all, he deflected, playing the victim. Isn't it wrong to judge people based on their education? Despite appearances, I can speak 5 languages: English, Japanese, Spanish, French, and Portuguese. How many can you speak? Being a University of Tokyo graduate, what does intelligence mean to you? What's so impressive about your alma mater? I taunted, watching him squirm. 5 languages, really? Then why did you attend that community college? It's like you did it to deceive me, and don't even try. My superiority stems from attending the University of Tokyo, he stubbornly asserted. Clearly, his alma mater held immense significance and prestige in his eyes. I pressed on, sensing his frustration. Judging people solely based on their educational background is narrow-minded. True value lies in someone's ability to excel regardless of where they studied. That's why I hold a high position in my company, I stated, watching him struggle to process my words. Until now, he had always believed himself to be superior to me. It seemed this revelation shifted his perspective. Never mind, I need to discuss something more urgent, I interjected, steering the conversation back to the main issue. While I knew it was leading towards discussing divorce plans, there was another matter I had to address first. Akinari was taken aback, wondering what else I had to say. Handing him the file I had found earlier, I demanded, "Explain what this is." Before he could respond, I continued, "This is the detailed plan for the Okadera Mountain Resort Hotel construction project. I know it's a significant project you're working on. How did you? He began, but I cut him off. I saw it sticking out of your bag, so I looked. You went through my private work files? Do you realize how serious this is? If this information were to fall into the wrong hands, he started, his voice rising in alarm. What are you afraid of? Being sued by my company and having the truth exposed? Is that what would happen if this ever got into the wrong hands? I challenged. Akinari was left speechless, his eyes wide with shock. We've both been distant from each other. That document is a joint construction project agreement and contract between my company and yours. See where it says cooperating company and XS company. XS company is mine, and I'm the vice president, I revealed with a smile. His mouth fell open, a bead of sweat trickling down his face. He began to panic and feigned examining the document. No, that can't be right. It must be a mistake from my assistant in the material order or something. Are you making excuses now? I didn't even mention the material order. We were investigating why we lost contact with your company and realized there was an error in the order. We plan to confirm it later, but your admission just confirmed it. I countered. He covered his mouth, perhaps trying to stop himself from saying more. It's too late now, he interjected sharply, and based on what I heard on the phone, it seems you're the one responsible for this mess. You can't even manage to place orders correctly or handle the construction schedule. It's clear that a University of Tokyo graduate doesn't live up to the hype. Or do you still believe you're so brilliant? He continued, cutting me off before I could respond. Why does my wife's company have to outshine mine? How is this even possible? This is absurd. I'm intelligent and capable because of my University of Tokyo degree. You know it, he lamented to himself. In response, I calmly stated, well, I've never considered you particularly bright. Oh, please. The sight of his expression makes me nauseous. As the vice president and head of this project, I'm halting all transactions with your company and seeking damages for this project. Additionally, I'll be filing for divorce. I informed him of the 3 actions I intended to take. Please, anything but that, my usually disrespectful husband begged, his palms pressed together. What do you mean anything but that? You mean all 3 actions. All of them. My entire life will crumble at once, he pleaded. Yes, all of them. It seems it's not just one issue now, is it? I couldn't help but chuckle at his incompetence. This time, as he watched me laugh at him, he felt a deep sense of shame. I no longer wish to be associated with such incompetence, whether as a couple or a company. It's time to let go and preserve what dignity you have left, I advised him. At that moment, he seemed to realize he had run out of options. Desperately, he clung to my leg, perhaps in a last-ditch effort to save himself. Please don't leave me. Don't leave me, the once confident man now sounded desperate, resembling a child being punished by being kicked out of his parents' home. Ignoring his pleas, I made a phone call instead. Hi, President. I'll explain the details later, but I've identified the person responsible for the project mishap. Yes, I'll ensure damages are claimed properly. Okay, bye. After hanging up, he slowly released my leg and stared at the floor. Exhausted, I decided to head to bed without a word, leaving him behind. The next morning, my husband was nowhere to be found. Before heading to work, I stopped by the courthouse to obtain divorce paperwork, which I kept in my purse. I planned to have him sign the papers after work. Upon arriving at the office, I encountered a commotion at the entrance. Akinari was amidst a group of men, engaged in a heated dispute. I'm terribly sorry, the president apologized upon seeing me approach. They've been causing a disturbance for the past 30 minutes, so I decided to call the police. Shortly after, the police arrived and intervened. Amidst the chaos, I couldn't make out what was being said. After giving them a stern warning, the police dispersed the group and they left. That evening, Akinari returned home with a defeated air about him. Without a word, he silently signed the papers I presented. Never subject yourself to such humiliation again, I admonished, but he seemed to be lost in his own world, broken and detached. Ensuring he completed all the paperwork correctly, I gathered my belongings and left without another word, opting to stay in a hotel until I found a new place. The following day, I filed the necessary paperwork to finalize the divorce. Our marriage had lacked love from the start, so I felt neither sadness nor stress over its dissolution. Life continued as usual, and 2 weeks later, I learned that my ex-husband's company had declared bankruptcy. Despite paying the damages to my company, they couldn't sustain future projects due to financial constraints. Consequently, my ex-husband, the project leader, faced legal action from the company, as my boss informed me. Ironically, my ex-husband's emphasis on education as a measure of competence had backfired. His downfall underscored the truth that academic credentials alone don't guarantee success. While Japan values higher education, once in a company, everyone is on equal footing. Success depends on resourcefulness and intentions, not just academic prowess. With this realization, I reaffirmed my belief that a person's educational background isn't paramount. Instead, dedication and determination are what truly matter. Armed with this perspective, I vowed to continue my journey with unwavering dedication, confident that success would follow. Enough of this racket. Get out of here with that baby right now. My husband's angry shout pierced the silence of the night, driving us out into the chill of the changing season. With mornings growing colder and the threat of imminent rain, I felt the sting of desperation claw at my bones. I'm freezing. If we stay out here, we'll freeze to death, I muttered to myself, clutching our 3-month-old daughter tightly wrapped in her blanket. Despite my relentless knocking, there was no response from inside. Helpless, I hugged my crying child closer, and we stumbled on. Each step felt heavier as exhaustion settled in. Please let us in, I pleaded with the empty darkness, but the night offered no solace. Wandering aimlessly, I found myself sitting on a bench in the park, my body frozen to the core. Tears flowed freely as the events leading to our plight played out in my mind. How did we end up like this? My name is Olivia, 31 years old. Left orphaned by my parents' divorce in middle school, I was later devastated by my mother's tragic accident 2 years ago. Alone and desperate, Benjamin, a college classmate turned husband, became my anchor. His promises of support and love offered a glimmer of hope in my darkest days. But since learning about my pregnancy, Benjamin's demeanor shifted. His warmth turned to frost, his kindness replaced by indifference. Despite my morning sickness and struggles, his patience wore thin, leaving me to fend for myself. I hoped our daughter's birth would mend our fractured bond, but it only widened the chasm between us. His absence grew pronounced, his anger palpable. Every night echoed with his complaints, his resentment towards our crying baby tearing at my heart. This life, once filled with dreams of a happy family, now felt like a nightmare of loneliness and despair. My husband seemed to have an invisible shield against childcare responsibilities, always deflecting them with claims of being swamped with work. Even on his supposed days off, relaxation at home was a foreign concept to him, opting instead to gallivant around town from dawn till dusk. Left alone to tend to our baby, I found myself drained, both physically and emotionally. Each night, our daughter's cries intensified, mirroring my own mounting distress. One fateful evening, my husband's simmering frustration boiled over. Get out of this house with that baby right now. His words cut through the air like a blade, leaving me stunned. I can't do that, I stammered, but before I could plead my case, we were cast out into the biting cold, devoid of essentials like keys, wallet, or phone. Helplessness washed over me as I clung to my daughter, wrapping her tightly in a blanket to shield her from the chill. With weary steps, we trudged on until exhaustion forced me to collapse on a park bench, my mind a whirlwind of despair. How had our once promising life devolved into this chaos? As if in response to my silent lament, my daughter's cries pierced the night air once more, a painful reminder of my failure. Just as the cold began to numb my senses, a voice shattered the silence. Are you okay? The concern in the stranger's voice momentarily transported me, as if my own mother had reached out from beyond. As I looked up, a woman stood before me, her eyes filled with compassion. My husband kicked me out because of her baby's crying, I explained, the words heavy with shame. Without hesitation, the stranger extended a lifeline. Come stay at my place, she offered, her kindness a beacon of hope in the darkness. As I hesitated, unsure whether to accept her generosity, she gently took my daughter into her arms, instantly calming her restless cries. It's okay, don't worry. Let's go somewhere warm for the baby's sake. Entering her home felt like stepping into a sanctuary. My daughter was cocooned in a soft blanket, offered a comforting glass of hot milk, and cradled in the stranger's arms, her gentle snores filling the room with a sense of peace I hadn't felt in far too long. I couldn't believe it. No matter how hard I tried, the baby just wouldn't settle. It can be quite a challenge if you're not accustomed to it. As a recent grandmother, I found myself occasionally caring for the little one, perhaps explaining my newfound sensitivity to a baby's cries. Checking on the source of the noise, I found myself face to face with a woman, gentle smile easing the tension in the room. She seemed around the same age as my mother, radiating warmth that instantly put me at ease. "I'm sorry for intruding like this," I murmured, feeling a wave of gratitude for her understanding. "It's okay," she reassured me, her kind eyes reflecting empathy. "We should help each other out in times of need. Do you need a ride home? Do you live nearby?" I hesitated, memories of being cast out still fresh in my mind. "No, I might just get thrown out again," I confessed, my voice faltering. Without missing a beat, she offered her hospitality. Her kindness moved me to tears once more. "Thank you so much," I whispered, introducing myself. "My name is Olivia." As the conversation flowed, a sudden realization dawned on me. "Wait a minute, isn't your baby's name Anne?" Her nod confirmed my suspicion. "Yes, but how did you?" It turns out, this woman was Jackson, my husband's direct superior. She had sent us a gift when Anne was born, hence her familiarity with our daughter's name. The coincidence caught me off guard, and I regretted airing my grievances about my husband to her. "We're always grateful for your help," I said, my mind racing with newfound information. "The thing is, my husband has been busy with work lately, and he seems quite tired." Jackson's response stunned me. "That can't be right. Your husband has been on parental leave for the past 2 months. My heart skipped a beat as her words sank in. "But he says he goes to work every day," I protested, confusion clouding my thoughts. "He even said he has work tomorrow." "It's a holiday. The office will be closed," Jackson explained, her tone tinged with concern. "I wonder what he's up to." I was blindsided by the revelation that my husband, whom I believed was tirelessly working, was actually on vacation. However, the pieces of the puzzle were finally starting to fall into place. I couldn't shake off the sense of anticipation that seemed to linger on the days my husband was supposed to be at work. Ever since I became pregnant, his behavior had taken a noticeable shift, leaving me with a nagging feeling that something wasn't quite right. As I pondered how to investigate further, Jackson suggested a bold idea. "Why don't you check his social media?" she proposed, gesturing towards a computer in the corner of the room. I accepted her offer gratefully and began scrolling through my husband's online presence. What I discovered left me reeling in shock. A trove of photos featuring him and another woman, seemingly inseparable. They look like a couple. "That's Ava," Jackson explained, her voice tinged with sympathy. "She worked at our company for only 3 months before recently quitting." The pieces fell into place, confirming my worst fears. Though I had harbored suspicions, the reality of my husband's affair hit me harder than I had anticipated. Do you know her address, her contact information?" I asked, my voice trembling with emotion. But Jackson hesitated, her concern evident. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have mentioned her name. It's personal information, and I can't disclose it," she replied gently, offering me solace in my moment of vulnerability. As I deflated, Jackson extended her support. "I'll do everything I can to help with anything else," she assured me. But my attention was drawn back to the screen, where a series of photos showcased my husband and his mistress living a life of luxury, dining at the prestigious Paris hotel. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. With no income during my maternity leave and our combined savings dwindling, there was no way he could afford such extravagance. "No way. This can't be happening," I whispered, my heart heavy with disbelief. With trembling hands, I logged into my bank account online, hoping against hope for a different outcome. But what I found only confirmed my worst fears. My savings of $250,000 vanished. The inheritance I received after my mother's tragic car accident had been cut in half, leaving me stunned and motionless for what felt like an eternity. "What's wrong?" Jackson's concerned voice broke through my daze. "My husband has been using my savings without my permission," I confessed, the betrayal cutting deep. "I had reserved those funds for our daughter's future, trusting my husband to keep them safe." But as I reflected on recent events, the pieces began to fall into place. Leaving my debit card with him during my hospitalization for childbirth had been a mistake. He hadn't visited me once during that time, and the first withdrawal from my savings coincided with the day I handed him the card. I had never doubted his integrity, believing he had locked it away securely. "I can't forgive him," I murmured, the weight of his deception crushing my spirit. "He's been using my beloved mother's inheritance without my permission." Determined to expose his deceit, I accepted Jackson's offer of a digital camera. The next day, we watched from the car as my husband, wearing a self-satisfied smirk, left our house without a second thought for our daughter and me. His carefree demeanor grated against my raw emotions, fueling my resolve. As expected, his car eventually pulled up at the Paris Hotel, his mistress in tow. With practiced ease, they strolled into the restaurant, oblivious to the pain they caused. Entrusting our daughter to Jackson's care, I took a seat behind them, steeling myself for the confrontation to come. "I've had enough of Olivia's stubbornness," my husband's callous words echoed in my ears. "Finally kicked her out last night. Now she's filed for divorce. I'll get the compensation from her mother's accident, and maybe even alimony." "You're despicable," Jackson retorted, her disgust palpable. "Your wife doesn't even realize you're after her money. You've been using her vulnerability since her mother passed away, but having a child was an unexpected obstacle." The shock of his admission left me speechless, my mind reeling with disbelief. Oblivious to my turmoil, my husband swaggered towards the elevator with his mistress, the key to their hotel room dangling from his fingers. As I stealthily followed them, even though it was just a fleeting moment before the elevator arrived, they embraced and began to kiss. Despite bracing myself, witnessing the affair unfold before my eyes was agonizing. A shiver ran down my spine as my husband's callous words echoed in my ears. "This is a pre-celebration for kicking Olivia out. Let's have a blast today." Unable to find my voice, I watched helplessly as the elevator doors closed, swallowing them up and leaving me behind. Frustration and sadness overwhelmed me, rendering me unable to stand. Collapsing to my knees, I felt a profound shift within me. The grief that had gripped my heart began to morph into a simmering desire for revenge. Betrayal of this magnitude was too cruel to ignore. I couldn't simply let it slide. That evening, timing my return to coincide with my husband's arrival home from work, I made my way back to the house. "Whoa, look who's back," he greeted me with mock surprise. "I'm sorry. I'll do whatever you say from now on. Please let me back in the house," I pleaded, masking my rising anger behind a facade of submission. It was time to tighten the noose around him, to play the part of the obedient wife and bide my time. "Fine. From now on, I'm not giving you any living expenses. Do whatever you want," he declared, his arrogance undiminished. Without a word of dissent and without broaching the subject of divorce, I made it clear that I was onto him. Despite his continued despicable attitude, I remained resolute, laying the groundwork for the vengeance that simmered beneath the surface. Enduring my husband's deceit, I persisted in my search for evidence of his affair, scouring the house for any clue. Among his belongings, I discovered a trove of receipts for hotels and meals tucked away in his suit pockets, but alone, they felt like feeble proof. It wasn't until I delved into social media under the woman's name that her true identity was unveiled 2 weeks later. With all preparations in place, I found myself once again at the infamous Paris Hotel. There they were, my husband and his mistress, brazenly indulging in dinner and public displays of affection, just as they had done before. Mustering my resolve, I approached them as they prepared to board the elevator. "What are you doing here?" my husband demanded, his tone defensive. "Why are you here?" "I am obviously here for a work meeting," I countered sharply, seizing the moment to confront him. Quickly disentangling himself from his mistress, my husband looked guilt-ridden, attempting to flee. "That's odd. Today's a day off, isn't it?" I pressed, my voice cutting through the tension. Turning in surprise, he stumbled upon a revelation. "What, Jackson? You're supposed to be on parental leave, right? How come you're working?" Caught off guard by my unexpected presence with his boss, my husband's feeble excuses faltered. Meanwhile, the mistress, identified as Ava, appeared uneasy and uncertain, her gaze fixed downward. Sensing the scrutiny of onlookers, I proposed a change of scenery. "Since we're drawing attention, let's move this to the room you guys booked. Unless you want me to scatter these photos around here. Is that okay?" I brandished the damning evidence, leaving my husband reeling. In a desperate bid to escape, he grabbed my arm and pulled me into the elevator. But Jackson intercepted, apprehending the fleeing mistress and bringing her along. "Why are you with Jackson?" my husband demanded, bewildered by the unexpected turn of events. "Since the day you kicked me out, I had nowhere to go. Jackson heard our daughter crying in the park and invited me in," I explained, seizing the opportunity to expose his hypocrisy. As we entered the room, a tense silence descended, marking the beginning of a confrontation long overdue. Dumping all the evidence onto the table, I watched as shock rippled across their faces. "What are these photos?" my husband stammered, his voice betraying a hint of panic. "I was here the day after you kicked me out of the house. It was shocking, but I took these as evidence of your affair," I explained, my tone steely with resolve. "That's low. That's my line," my husband retorted, his attempt to deflect criticism falling flat in the face of my accusations. His silence spoke volumes, but I pressed on. "I'm aware you used my savings without my consent. That money was a legacy from my mother," I continued, my voice unwavering. "That's our shared property. I don't see an issue with me using it," he countered, his arrogance grating against my sense of injustice. "It's not shared property. It's mine and mine alone," I insisted, refusing to back down. "You will return the $120,000 you used." "Come on, we're married. Let's not get into such tedious matters," he dismissed, his indifference fueling my frustration. Exhausted by his callousness, I reached into my bag and pulled out the divorce papers, slamming them onto the table with finality. "I'm fed up with you. Fill out these divorce papers immediately." "That's a leap, don't you think? Didn't I hear you say you wanted me to bring up divorce?" he protested, his attempt to deflect blame falling on deaf ears. I played a recording of a conversation we had during a previous meal, his hurtful words reverberating throughout the room. "Give me a break. Not a chance to think. You approached me just for my money," his voice echoed, each syllable a painful reminder of his betrayal. It all became clear after I heard our conversation from that day. "That's why you became so cold all of a sudden," I declared, my voice steady despite the turmoil within. "There's a lot to the situation. I don't want to hear any excuses or lies," I continued, my resolve unyielding. "Pay me $20,000 for the affair, $10,000 for all the times you mistreated me, $120,000 for the money you took from my savings, and $110,000 for child support until our daughter turns 20. That's a total of $260,000 in one lump sum." "What mistreatment?" he protested, his voice tinged with desperation. But there was no denying the truth of his actions. "You kicked me and our daughter out of the house in the middle of the night and didn't provide living expenses," I countered, my voice unwavering. Clearly caught off guard, he attempted to salvage the situation. "Just calm down. Let's talk this out," he pleaded, his tone bordering on pathetic. But there was no room for negotiation. "Don't mock me, and don't think you're out of this either. I'll be seeking $20,000 in damages from you too," I retorted, my gaze unwavering. Turning to face his mistress, I could see the color drain from her face. "I have to pay too, of course. But in return, I'm divorcing him, so you two can be open about your relationship. That should be a relief, right?" I remarked, my tone cutting. As the reality of his situation sank in, my husband's desperation reached a fever pitch. "Please spare me this one time. I'll be a good husband, I promise," he begged, his tears and snot a sorry sight. But his pitiful display only served to strengthen my resolve. Turning my back on him, I took the house keys and card case from his bag. I sold the house that was in my name. "Jackson reported everything to the company, and it seems you're going to be fired," I informed him, my voice devoid of emotion. As we left the room, I knew it was the end of an era. I didn't want to see my husband ever again, so I arranged for a divorce through a lawyer. I reflected, my mind already moving forward. I demanded compensation for the divorce, the money he had squandered, and child support. With his parents furious and his future uncertain, my husband's downfall was complete. Since he couldn't pay all the compensation in one go, his father forced him to work in a mine, I concluded, my voice tinged with finality. Leaving behind the remnants of my old life, my daughter and I embarked on a new journey. We bought a small apartment and started our new life, I recounted, a sense of relief washing over me. The moment we started living here, my daughter's night crying stopped completely. Grateful for Jackson's support and the opportunity for a fresh start, I knew that together, my daughter and I would build a home filled with happiness and love. My name is Olivia, and I'm a 32-year-old housewife. My husband, Liam, is 34 and works an ordinary office job. We've been married for 8 years and have a precious daughter named Ava, who is 6 years old. Ava is incredibly adorable, and both Liam and I are completely smitten with her. I have an older sister, Emma, who is 3 years older than me. She recently turned 35 and went through a divorce due to a personality clash, becoming a single mother to her 4-year-old son Noah. One day, we planned to go to the zoo with Emma and Noah. Unfortunately, I caught a cold at the wrong time. When I tried to cancel the outing, Liam kindly offered to take the day off from work, not wanting to disappoint the kids. Even though it meant he and Emma would be alone together with the children, I didn't think anything of it. However, one day when I was walking through the shopping district after running errands, I happened to see Liam and Emma sitting together in a cafe. I wondered why they were together, but as it was almost time for Ava to come home from her after-school program, I headed home, still feeling uneasy. That night, when Liam came home, I asked him about it. He explained that it had started raining and they happened to meet, so they went to the cafe to wait for the rain to stop. He seemed calm and nonchalant, so I trusted him at the time. But after that day, Liam started coming home late more frequently. He also began asking for more money, claiming he was short on cash. On his days off, he went out more often, and whenever Emma visited our house, their interaction seemed more familiar than before. Suspicion began to creep into my mind, even though our relationship with Ava remained as strong as ever. Then an incident occurred that made me realize something was amiss. Emma came over as usual and asked if I could take care of Noah for about a week. A friend had invited her on a trip to Hawaii, and it was difficult to bring Noah along. Emma pleaded, saying she needed a break after being so busy. I understood how hard it was for her since the divorce, and though reluctant, I agreed to help. As Emma's trip approached, Liam told me he would be away for a while on a business trip, visiting multiple areas over several days. I thought it was a tough coincidence, but I was shocked when I learned his departure date. It was the same day as Emma's trip to Hawaii. Was this really a coincidence? Liam's increasing phone use and secretive behavior made me more suspicious. When Emma visited, their interaction seemed unusually close. On the day of Emma's departure, she arrived early in the morning with Noah. The moment I held Noah's hand and immediately noticed something was off. His hand was unusually hot and his body felt feverish when I lifted him. I didn't need a thermometer to know he had a high fever. "Emma, doesn't Noah have a fever?" I asked. Yes, he's been running a fever since yesterday. It hasn't gone down yet," she admitted. "What? We have to take him to the hospital right away. Surely your son's health should be more important than a trip," I insisted. But then Emma said something outrageous. "So I'm counting on you." "What? You're leaving your child here while he has a fever?" I was incredulous. "I have no choice, do I? I made the promise a long time ago. It's ridiculous to pay a cancellation fee," she replied. "That's not the point, is it? Isn't Noah the most important here?" I argued. "Of course he's important, but I'm not worried because you're here, Olivia. Take good care of him for me," Emma said. "Wait, Emma." Despite my attempts to stop her, Emma left. I couldn't believe it. Noah was suffering from a high fever, and she left him in my care. Noah seemed to be really struggling, probably because of the strain of moving while having a high fever. I quickly laid him down on the bed and placed a cold, wet towel on his forehead. While I was preparing an ice pillow in the freezer, Liam woke up. "Liam, it seems Noah has a fever," I said. "Really? Is that so?" he replied sleepily. "Emma is terrible. She's going on a trip, leaving Noah in this state," I fumed. "Well, she had planned it long ago, right? She probably can't cancel at this point," he reasoned. "You too, Liam. Poor Noah. If you feel that way, you should take good care of him," I said. "Liam, can't you do something about your business trip? If Noah has some contagious disease, he might pass it to Ava. I'll take care of Noah, so I want you to take care of Ava," I pleaded. As a mother who loves her daughter dearly, I reluctantly agreed. Work is important, but surely our daughter is even more important. However, my expectations were betrayed. "What? That's impossible. You should know that," I exclaimed. "If you're worried, just leave her at your parents' house," Liam suggested. "Even if you say that, my parents are busy with work and your parents' house is too far away to go now," I countered. "Then there's no choice," Liam replied. "Well, all we need to do is let Noah sleep. It'll be fine," he said casually. "Say that so casually. What do you want me to do then?" I retorted. It's time. I have to go. I'll be going then." Liam hurried off, leaving me behind. I quickly called my parents. They couldn't take a day off work on such short notice, but my mother promised to leave early and come pick up Ava as soon as possible, which gave me some relief. While waiting for my mother to arrive, I kept Ava confined to her room, feeling sorry for her. Meanwhile, Noah's condition seemed to be worsening. In addition to this fever, he started to cough in the early afternoon. When my mother arrived early from work, I immediately took Noah to the pediatrician. On the way to the hospital, my heart ached seeing Noah suffer even from the car ride. The doctor diagnosed it as a common cold and prescribed an antipyretic, advising me to monitor his condition closely. However, I was warned to call an ambulance without hesitation if his fever rose further or if he became dangerously delirious. "I'm sorry, Mom," I whispered to myself, overwhelmed with concern for Noah's well-being. "I suddenly had to ask you to take care of Ava. Don't worry about it. More importantly, I'm worried about Noah," my mother assured me over the phone. Noah was as dear to my parents as Ava. After finishing the call with my mother, I felt an urge to call my husband's company. I needed to know the location of his supposed business trip in case of emergencies. The response confirmed my worst fears. He was on paid leave. Looking up at the sky, a bad premonition began to feel real. I opened my husband's laptop, which I had never seen before, and examined his search history. The destination was Hawaii, and all arrangements, plane tickets and hotel reservations, had been made by him. I recognized the name of the hotel. It was where my sister had mentioned staying. My sister and husband in Hawaii at the same hotel at the same time. Such a coincidence was implausible, not even 1 in 10,000. The fact that my husband, who claimed to be on a business trip, was on paid leave in Hawaii was abnormal. Out of curiosity, I checked my sister's social media. There were no new posts, but her recent ones showed her often with someone. The clothing visible in the photos looked all too familiar. What turned my suspicion into certainty was a picture where the person with her wore a watch that I had given my husband, not expensive, but distinct in design. This person, clearly not my husband, appeared in multiple photos with her, wearing the same clothes and watch. The possibility of coincidence was virtually zero. Then I found the conclusive photo in an album labeled Window Shopping. My sister was reflected in a shop window, and at the edge of the photo, unmistakably, was my husband. My sister, elated, had likely posted the photo without realizing he was in the reflection. With trembling hands, I saved all the photos. There was no doubt now. My sister and husband were having an affair. They were together right now, and it felt like everything fell into place. The foundation I had built with my husband was crumbling all at once. I called them repeatedly, but each time an automated voice message played, it seemed they had turned off their phones. Noah's fever still hadn't subsided, and seeing his pained expression, anger began to well up inside me. Despite a young child suffering so much, despite my own tough situation, at this very moment, my sister and husband were likely laughing and enjoying their trip to Hawaii. Could there be a more cruel story than this? Shaking with anger, I tried to think about what to do next, but that would have to wait. First and foremost, I needed to wait for Noah to recover. Yet there was no sign of his fever decreasing. If anything, it seemed to be getting worse. I was shocked when I took his temperature minus 107 degrees. Children are susceptible to high fevers. Ava had once had a fever of 104 degrees, but never this high. Why wasn't the fever reducer working? Noah was completely exhausted, and any movement seemed to cause him pain. Desperate to suppress the panic threatening to overwhelm me, I was just considering calling an ambulance when my smartphone buzzed. "Mommy," Noah murmured weakly, his face contorted in pain, calling out for his mother. "I can't forgive them. I'll never forgive them," I vowed silently, my vision clouding with rage. Just as it seemed my anger would consume me, Noah's condition suddenly took a turn for the worse. A week had passed since then, and despite my sorrow, today was a clear day. I found myself staring blankly at the wide blue sky, tears streaming down my face. I had lost count of how many times I had cried, yet my tears showed no signs of drying up. Ava's hand trembled in mine, and as I lifted her up, I could see my parents, also in tears, comforting her. Other family members and friends gathered, all sharing in our grief. Everyone, without exception, was in tears. Suddenly, my smartphone vibrated. I set Ava down and glanced at the display. It was my sister's name. "Hello," I answered hesitantly. "Oh, Olivia, it's been a while. I just got back from Hawaii. I'm at the airport now, and I'm going to pick up Noah next. Thanks for looking after him." My sister's voice came through the line as if from another world. I uttered a phrase as if whispering, "Our dear has gone to heaven." A single tear, which I thought I had under control, spilled over. Unable to comprehend my words, my sister asked back in a bewildered voice over the phone, "Heaven? What are you talking about? That makes no sense." "So our loved one is in heaven while you were enjoying your trip to Hawaii," I said, struggling to contain my emotions. "I don't understand what you're saying," my sister replied, sounding confused. "You'll understand when you get here. The funeral is over, and we're now at the crematorium." "What? The crematorium?" My sister's voice was filled with shock and disbelief, and the phone call abruptly ended. No. My sister rushed out of the taxi, desperation etched on her face. She called out his name and looked around frantically, but Noah wasn't there. "Where is he?" "He's not here." "Of course he isn't," I said softly, pointing in the direction of the crematorium. Though modern crematoriums don't emit smoke like the old ones, there was no mistaking the solemn reality. Someone was being cremated right now. "About Noah, the day you dropped him off, his fever suddenly spiked to 107 degrees Fahrenheit. 107 degrees? My sister's voice faltered. The antipyretic we got from the pediatrician didn't work, and his condition deteriorated rapidly. We called an ambulance in a panic, but no. I couldn't bring myself to finish the sentence. "We're in the middle of a funeral right now," I continued, spreading my arms towards the crematorium. "Hey, what's going on? What happened to Noah? Why are you here?" A man shouted, breaking the silence. It was my husband, shock and disbelief evident in his voice. "It doesn't matter why I'm here. What about Noah?" I retorted sharply. "Of course it matters." My husband's voice was strained, filled with urgency and concern. With nothing left to lose, I faced my husband, ready to confront the truth. I shouted back, "What kind of nerve do you two have to abandon your family and go on a fair trip? Noah was sick with a fever, and despite my plea for help, you ignored us and went on your trip. Are you out of your mind? What are you saying?" "I've known for a long time. When I contacted your company, they said you had taken paid leave. When I checked the computer, there was a reservation for a trip to Hawaii, staying on the same flight and in the same hotel as my sister. You think you can explain that away as a coincidence?" At my intense accusation, my husband was left speechless. "Olivia, tell me, is Noah?" His voice broke. "How can you ask that question now? Why do you think we're here? Why do you think we're wearing mourning clothes at the crematorium? Don't you understand?" I demanded, my voice trembling with emotion. No. My sister's scream pierced the tense air, collapsing into tears. I looked down at her with cold eyes. "You have no right to cry, Emma. You're the worst kind of person, abandoning your son to go on a trip with your sister's husband." "I was so lonely all by myself. That's why. Emma's voice quivered. "So you laid hands on my husband?" I accused. "What? I did nothing wrong." "I'm not in the wrong," Emma insisted, unbelievably lashing out in anger. "I didn't choose to have a child, nor did I choose to become a single mother. When my ex-husband and I divorced, I wanted him to take custody of Noah, but he refused. So I did my best to raise him on my own. But to think Noah would? No, Emma." The one comforting my crying sister was my husband. It seemed he had no intention of hiding their affair any longer. "Don't be selfish. Our parents and I have helped as much as we can. Leaving the sick child alone to have an affair is no excuse," I lashed out at them. "You don't even realize how despicable you are. You're the worst." "Hey, Olivia, aren't you being too harsh on your sister?" "Emma is shocked because Noah has passed away," my husband interjected. "Shut up. Don't you dare act superior. Just so you know, we're getting a divorce. I'll make you pay for everything you owe, so be prepared." "What? What does that have to do with this?" "It has everything to do with this," I yelled back at him, my sister crying in the background. The situation had become a battlefield. Our parents approached us in the midst of the chaos. My sister, tear-streaked, blamed them. "Dad, Mom, why didn't you take proper care of Noah? Why did you let this happen?" she cried out. Suddenly, a dry slapping sound echoed through the tension. It was our father who had slapped my sister's cheek. "Don't be ridiculous. You abandoned your child and yet you blame others. You even went on a trip with your sister's husband. Shameless. I feel ashamed as a father for raising you like this," he condemned her. My sister cried even harder at our father's harsh words. I contemplated slapping my husband, but before I could act, a small boy's voice cut through the turmoil. "Mom." My sister turned sharply. There he was. "No, she exclaimed, moving towards him. but the man holding Noah quickly stepped back, out of her reach. "Hey, what are you doing, Lucas?" I demanded. The man holding Noah was my sister's ex-husband, the man who had divorced her due to their personal conflicts. "That's what I should be saying. What are you doing, leaving Noah alone? It's none of your business. Noah is my son too," he argued fiercely. I followed the prevailing opinion that a mother is better because you insisted on not sharing custody, no matter how many times I warned you. You wouldn't let me see him, and as I feared, it came to this. You have no right to be Noah's mother. Shut up. All you have to do is quietly pay child support. I'll pay whatever it takes for Noah's sake, but you didn't take care of him. You left him alone. You didn't even know how dangerous his condition was, and you were off on a pleasure trip. On that day when Noah's condition suddenly deteriorated, I panicked and called an ambulance. I called my parents and Lucas, Noah's father. While treatment was being given after arriving at the hospital, he was quite surprised when I told him my sister was on a pleasure trip with my husband. Afterwards, Noah, who was discharged from the hospital in good health, was recuperating at Lucas's parents' house. "Wait, so Noah is safe, right?" I asked my bewildered husband, staring at the crematorium. "It's her grandmother," I explained. "Our grandmother, who was bedridden due to her advanced age, has been under care at a nursing home. She passed away from old age the other day. Even though she was bedridden, she had a clear mind and doted on her great-grandchildren, Ava and Noah. When we occasionally visited her at the facility, her wrinkled face would crinkle even more. At the sudden farewell, I, my parents, and Ava were unable to cope and just wept. Noah, being just out of illness, didn't attend the funeral. But I called my sister to this crematorium after informing Lucas that Noah was fine, since his fever had completely gone down. "You tricked me," my sister accused, staring daggers at us. We were the ones who wanted to accuse her. "I didn't hear that Grandma had passed away either," my sister shouted. "I called multiple times to tell you that Grandma had passed away, but your phone was turned off. Both of you were unreachable. Even though Grandma was kind to you, it's unacceptable to be late enough. It's mocking me." "No, let's go. You'd rather be with Mommy than this man, right, Lucas?" I said firmly, trying to take no back from Lucas. It was father scolding my sister who was confronting Lucas. "Are you still thinking that you can keep Noah with you even after all this? Listen, what you did was on the verge of breaking the law. It's called parental neglect. You failed as a mother. Don't think that you can ever be by Noah's side again. Noah will be raised by Lucas." "Dad, no way. We have even hired a lawyer and decided to fully cooperate with Lucas. You are no longer our daughter. Be prepared for us to cut ties, Mom." My sister's face turned pale at the disavowal from her parents. I stood imposingly in front of my sister and husband. "My husband and I are getting a divorce. Why don't you two get along? You should be fine not seeing each of your children. After all, you left them behind to go on a trip overseas." Hearing this, my husband started yelling. "Wait, Olivia, it was just a moment of weakness, just a fling with Emma. What's most important to me are you and Ava." Then my sister exploded. "What did you say? A fling? You said you don't love Olivia anymore, that you only love me." "Shut up. I love my daughter. Don't mess with me." My husband and sister resumed their quarrel. We left them arguing and departed with my grandmother's ashes. After that intense dispute, mediation ended peacefully since I had appointed a lawyer. Noah went to his father's place. I thought he would feel sad about being apart from his mother, but he was actually happy. It seemed my sister was completely non-functional as a mother. My husband and I also had our disagreements. He was stubborn, but after being scolded by both sets of parents, he deflated. The final blow came from our daughter. "I don't need daddy," Ava declared. Though only 6, she seemed to mature early and understood her father's behavior in her own way. When Ava looked at my husband like he was an insect, I couldn't help but laugh. There was no greater punishment for my ex-husband, who had adored her daughter. He now has the right to see Ava, but whether she wants to see him is up to her. So the dramatic situation came to an end. Ava and I moved back to our parents' home, living peacefully. Our parents were thrilled to have Ava around. Next year, she would start first grade, and we were excited about her school preparation. I also planned to get a job at the same time she started school. Noah visited every now and then with Lucas. His face was unrecognizably bright compared to before, filled with smiles. Meanwhile, while we were living joyfully, it seemed my sister and ex-husband ended their relationship easily. Perhaps it truly was just a fling for my ex-husband. Perhaps he was shocked at being disliked by his daughter, so he easily discarded my sister. However, his affair with his wife's sister became known in his company, and he was deemed to have character problems. He was sent to the provinces, making it even harder for him to see Ava. He deserved it. As for my sister, it seemed she lived like a hollow shell for a while, frustrated by being abandoned by everything. Eventually, she disappeared. We filed a missing persons report, but I had a feeling my sister would never be found.